Her hand shot out of the water and grabbed his wrist. He nearly dropped her. Blood swirled in the current. 2 arrows in her back. She wasn't breathing right. He dragged her onto the rocks, chest heaving, skin gray. One eye opened. She saw his face. Froze. Then she whispered one word. His blood went cold. Behind him, the horses started to panic. The air changed. The ground felt wrong. He turned. Smoke rose in every direction, not from fire, from signals. He counted 1, 2, 5. Then the hills answered. Drums. Painted riders on the ridgelines. He looked down. She was awake now, not grateful, terrified. And she said the name of the man they thought he killed. Under the edge of a rock overhang, the cowboy laid her down. Her body was too light, skin like leather over bone, eyes shut, mouth slack. Blood still came slow and dark from her back. It soaked into the dirt. He crouched beside her and touched her neck. Faint pulse. Still there. The wind scraped sand across the stone, but he didn't hear it. Only the name. The name she'd said. Nantuan. He hadn't heard it spoken since the treaty talks broke in the hills outside Fort Lowell. Since the shooting started before the talking ended. Since men rode away in silence because speaking it aloud was too close to keeping it alive. Nantan was dead. That girl thought he had done it. He looked at her face. Even now, unconscious, she looked like she knew something terrible. Her lips twitched when her body spasmed from pain. He opened his saddlebag, pulled out the old blue coat, still lined in gold at the edges, though most of it had rotted out. He hadn't worn it since he stopped taking pay, since they stopped asking. The seams tore easy. Years in the desert will do that. He wrapped the sleeves around her ribs, tight enough to stop the bleeding, not enough to crush her. He'd patched wounds before, on men, on horses, on himself, but not like this, not with a girl who would rather die than see his face. The sound came then, a footstep on loose rock, then another. He slid back, slow, holding his rifle close to the body. Didn't cock it, just laid his thumb near the trigger. 1 sound, 2, then nothing. No voices, no birds, just the weight of silence bending the air. He peered over the rock ledge. 3 shadows moved against the ridge, all upright, all slow, not rushing, tracking. One stopped and knelt. Another turned his head, not toward him, toward the place they'd come from. He ducked back. They'd found the blood trail. He looked at the girl, at the rawhide thongs on her ankles, torn now. Someone had tied her like that before he found her in the river. Maybe they thought she'd betrayed them. Maybe she had. It didn't matter now. They wouldn't care who he was or what he had done. All they'd see was a white man with one of their own dying at his feet. He looked at the overhang's edge, could slip away, fade back into the canyons. He'd done it before, left worse behind. But she made a sound. A breath pushed out like glass cracking. Her fingers moved against the dirt. He could leave. He did not. He pulled her closer to the wall, tightened the cloth around her back, checked his rifle once. Then he watched the sun crawl across the rock and listened for footsteps he hoped wouldn't come closer. The sun crept low over the ridge as they moved out. The horse breathed heavy under her weight. She hung limp across the saddle, her dark hair tangled with blood and dust. One of her arms swung with the rhythm of the steps, lifeless but warm. He walked beside them, always watching. The hills looked empty, but he knew better. The rocks had eyes. The sand held prints not made by animals. He counted flashes of motion along the skyline. Nothing too close. Yet. He kept them low, weaving through dry arroyos and brush-choked washes. Each bend in the land bought them another 5 minutes. That was all he could ask for. The horse stopped, nostrils wide, ears stiff. He looked up. The wind shifted. Carrion birds rose from the valley ahead. He blinked, and the dust became memory. An adobe wall, flags flapping limp against poles, a folding table set with tin cups and untouched bread, men seated with pistols in their laps. The woman who had translated was gone. slipped away when the shouting started. He saw one face clearly. Not angry, not scared, just watching. A shadowed stare under a black hat as he turned and walked away. He came back to the present. The girl moaned. The horse shivered. A high-pitched note cut the air. Bone whistle. He knew that sound. Scout signal. It meant danger ahead or below. He moved fast, led the horse behind a cluster of low boulders, piled sagebrush in a loose ring, and struck a match. The fire caught quick. Smoke curled upward. He took the girl down and laid her in the shallow shade, covered her with his coat. Then he climbed up behind the rocks. Minutes passed. Then shapes emerged near the fire. 2 figures. One pointed. The other crouched and checked the ground. He waited until the second turned his back. Then he moved. No gunfire. Just the sound of a boot connecting with bone. The whisper of breath leaving a body. The thud of weight hitting dust. The second scout turned. Too late. The cowboy held him down. Hand over mouth. Knife to throat. A struggle. Then stillness. He dragged the bodies back behind the rocks, covered the blood with dirt. Knew it wouldn't fool anyone for long. He checked the girl again. She was awake. Her eyes tracked his face but said nothing. Then he saw them. More riders on the ridge. He raised his rifle, aimed low, stopped. A small figure among them, not carrying a weapon, wrapped in a woven cloth. A child. The group wasn't a war party. It was a clan, a family. They weren't hunting him for a bounty. They were mourning, and they were coming for the girl, or the body they thought they'd find. She woke with a shudder, always wide, breath caught in her throat. The cowboy crouched, near the embers of the decoy fire. His rifle rested on his lap. The girl pushed up on her elbows and winced. Her fingers clawed at the dirt until they closed around something black and sharp. A broken shard of obsidian. She turned quick and lunged. He caught her wrist before the edge reached his neck. She shook, not from fear, from fury. A string of words poured from her lips, raw, slurred. Apache. He understood only some, enough. Blood stealer, brother thief, coward. He held her wrist until the fight left her arm, then let go. She spat near his foot. Her eyes never left his. He reached for his canteen, held it out. She slapped it away, tried to sit up, failed. He set it beside her and waited. Minutes passed. She reached for it on her own, drank, cursed again, louder, called him a different word this time, one heavier, sacred. He answered in her tongue. I did not kill Nantan. She froze. The wind whistled through the brush. Somewhere above, a hawk circled. No other sound passed between them. Her chest rose and fell, slow, measured. Her eyes searched his face like she was looking for the edge of a lie. She said a name. Not his. Her own. Teysa. He knew the word. Fire. He nodded once, spoke it back to her. Teysa. She watched him for a long moment, and then she looked down at her bloodied hands, the cloth around her ribs, the stripped coat, the ash on his skin, the wound on his shoulder. She whispered one sentence. Why did you save me? He did not answer. She leaned back into the earth, stared up at the sky, closed her eyes but did not sleep. Her body rested, but something inside her stayed lit. He sat beside her without touching her, without reaching for his rifle, just waiting for what might come next. The first hooves struck like thunder behind his ribs. He froze. Teysa's head turned toward the sound. Her eyes widened. She reached for the broken obsidian again, but stopped herself. Her breathing went shallow. The cowboy grabbed the reins and pulled the horse into the narrowest cut he could find. A dry wash twisted like a wound through the stone. He helped Teysa down. No time for caution, just movement. They slid into the ravine and pressed low against the wall. The rock still held the heat of morning. He counted them by sound first, then by shadows. The horses came fast, not hard, not loud, not with war cries or spears raised, but in silence, a different kind of fear. They were painted, men and women, too old, one blind in one eye. A girl not older than 10 sat upright behind her mother, eyes scanning the dust for something she hoped not to see. This was no raiding band. This was a people in mourning. Tisa looked at him. Her face had shifted, gone pale under the dust and blood. She understood what they were. Then her head turned toward the east. Toward the place the water ran wide and the banks turned red. The cowboy saw it in her face before she spoke. If they reached the river, they would find the trail. Blood in the sand. Drag marks through the reeds. Signs of a fight. Signs of a body taken. He whispered it quiet, just breath behind his teeth. They will think you are dead. She nodded. Slow. Then he said what came next. They will follow the tracks. They will find the prints. They will see my boots. My horse. They will not ask why. Tisa sat up straighter. Her wounds pulled tight across her back. She bit down the pain. He helped her climb onto the horse again. They moved quick and silent along the edges of the wash, bending low under brush and between fallen stone. By the time the last of the riders had passed, they had doubled back. The air grew hotter as the sun climbed higher. Sweat ran from his neck into his shirt. His fingers left damp prints on every rock he touched. He used a branch to drag new lines across the sand, covered prints with gravel, kicked apart the shape of where her body had lain. Tasa followed his lead. She smeared her own blood into dry dust, then rubbed it away with a handful of red earth. They worked without words. The silence between them was no longer made of hate. It was made of urgency, of knowledge. That grief had many shapes, and some of them carried knives. The mine shaft breathed heat like a lung holding in its last breath. They had made it just before the sun bent low. Dry rock walls swallowed the light, and the air turned heavy. The cowboy led the horse inside first, quiet and slow, letting its hooves strike only solid ground. No echoes, no panic. Then he helped Tasa down. She leaned against the wall and slid until she sat, legs drawn up, arms tight across her stomach. Her eyes stayed open, but her body trembled under the weight of its own silence. He pulled a scrap of jerky from his saddlebag and handed it to her. She took it without thanks, bit once, then set it down beside her. He sat across from her. Just a shape in the shadow. I rode with him. Tasa did not move. Nantan. She blinked, but her face gave nothing. We scouted together. 6 months, near the Chiricahua line, before the deal fell apart. She stared through him. Not at him. He said Nantan never bragged, just smiled when things went his way. Smiled with only half his teeth, 2 missing from the left. One was gold, the other cracked in half. Laughed when he was outnumbered, frowned when someone lied. Had a finger gone from his right hand, middle one. Said it got caught in a wagon gear when he was a boy. But that was not true. Everyone knew it had been taken in a fight. He just liked the other story better. Tasa's head turned, slow. She looked at him as if trying to see beneath his skin. Then her voice came, low, flat. Why did he die and you did not? He looked down. The air inside the mine grew thinner, still, like it wanted no part of what he was about to say. Because I ran. She did not answer. She turned her face to the wall. Her eyes stayed open. The cowboy stood, moved to the mine mouth, looked out between the old timbers. Still daylight. Long shadows stretched across the sand. Nothing moved in the near distance. But the far ridge shimmered. Then he saw it. A shape against the sun. A man. Tall. Holding something in his hand. Not a weapon. A staff, maybe, or a bow. The cowboy stepped back. He crouched low and slid to where Tasa lay. She looked up at him. He pressed his hand gently over her mouth. She stilled. The shadow moved closer to the mine's edge. Just outside. Boots scraped rock. Dust crumbled. The sound of breathing. Then silence. The cowboy did not move. Tasa did not blink. The shadow stood there for a long time. Then it turned and vanished without a word. They stood at the edge of the chasm, The sky above had gone to ember. The rocks around them caught the last of the day and held it like coals waiting to dim. The canyon mouth yawned wide before them, and the rope bridge hung across it like a thread pulled too tight. The cowboy checked the boards, dry, cracked, but still holding. He stepped forward and waited for the groan of the ropes. Tassa followed. She walked on her own. Her steps were slow, but set with purpose. Her chin stayed high. The wind tugged at her blanket. She ignored it. Halfway across, she stopped. He turned. Her eyes were locked on something behind him. Not fear, not surprise. Instinct dropped him low. Heat kissed the air behind his neck. The arrow lit the world in two. It struck the boards behind them. Flame swallowed dry wood. The ropes twitched. Heat rose fast. The bridge began to sway. He grabbed Tassa and pushed forward. She resisted just long enough to leave a question in the air. Then she ran. The boards cracked. He moved after her, boots striking hard, each plank louder than the last. The fire chased them. Red light flickered across the stone. Smoke curled between the gaps. They reached the end. He leapt, hit the ground, rolled. She stumbled forward and fell into him. Behind them, the bridge tore free. The ropes snapped. Boards dropped in a line like bones through fire. The canyon swallowed the sound. They lay still. The cowboy looked back once, then up. Shapes moved on the far ridge, shadows too far to shoot, close enough to watch. He helped Tassa to her feet. They stood on the edge. The bridge was gone. The fire had done its job. Now the hunters would come another way. Slower, smarter. He looked at Tassa. She still held the obsidian shard in her hand. The fire behind them had burned clean, but the next one would not give warning. The fall did not kill them. They had landed in a slope of broken shale and loose gravel. The canyon below caught them like a hand not quite gentle. Dust filled the air. Blood marked their skin. Scrapes ran across their arms and legs like maps drawn in pain. The cowboy coughed once, felt each rib answer back. Nothing broken, just bruised. Tassa lay nearby, her arm bent wrong but not shattered. She sat up before he could reach her. They looked around. The place was unlike the others. The walls rose high in a perfect ring. Red stone stacked in layers. No path in, no path out. Not one they could see. A hollow carved by wind and time. Tissa touched the ground. Her fingers trembled, but she kept them there. Eyes closed. She whispered the word. Circle. He asked what it meant. She stood slowly, face tight, her mouth drawn into something more than pain, something like knowing. This is a place of judgment. The cowboy looked at the walls again. He felt it now, the stillness, the weight of silence, the way even the wind kept out. No weapons were drawn, but danger had shape here, and it moved. Tassa knelt, dug her hands into the ash left by an old fire ring near the center. The dust was cold, white, fine as bone. She smeared it across her face, across her chest, lines of war, or memory. He watched, said nothing. She looked at him then. Not with anger, not with trust, only truth. The only way out is to be reborn, or die trying. The cowboy stepped closer. His boots left prints that felt wrong against the earth. Like each step said too much. Then they heard it. First one footfall, then another. Soft against stone. Figures appeared at the top of the circle, silent, watching. No words called out, no cries of revenge, only presence. The tribe had found them. The cowboy reached for his rifle. Tassa stopped him with a look. She stepped away from him, unarmed. She walked to the center of the circle. Her shoulders straightened, her face still marked in ash. She raised her chin toward the figures above, then lowered her eyes. Waited. The cowboy did not move. He knew this place was not for him, and that whatever happened next would not be his choice. The circle tightened. Dust rose around them as more feet met the earth. Spears angled downward. Faces painted in ash and ochre. Men, women, elders, youth. all watching, all silent. Tassa stood at the center, her shoulders squared, her chin steady. Ash still marked her skin, dry now beneath the canyon light. The cowboy remained behind her, just beyond the inner ring. His rifle had been taken, his hat gone. Blood trailed from his temple where a stone had struck. Two warriors approached. They grabbed his arms and pulled him forward. He did not resist. His boots dragged a trail across the sand. He knelt beside her, head down, breathing shallow. The circle parted at the far side. 4 elders stepped through, old warriors with eyes like dried fire. They sat on stones without speaking. The silence held longer than it should have. Then one raised a hand. The circle watched. Tassa turned to face them. Her voice came low, measured, worn thin by days of pain and dust. She did not defend him. She did not plead. She asked one thing. If he killed Nantian, show the proof. A murmur passed through the crowd, a ripple of tension. Spears wavered. Then a man stepped forward. His face was cut from memory, scar down his cheek, one eye cloudy. His chest bare but for a woven string that hung around his neck. From it, a small stone amulet swung, carved with the mark of the lightning bear. Nantan's mark. The man raised it for all to see. He spoke. He had seen the killing. It was not the cowboy who held the blade, not the cowboy who struck the final blow. It was a traitor from the border, a man with silver buttons and soft hands, a coward with poison words and soldiers behind him. The circle stirred, faces turned. The cowboy did not look up. Tassa stood taller, but the elder did not nod, did not speak. Another voice said what they all knew. Blood had still been spilled. The brother of a chief had died. The old laws demanded a weight to match the loss. The balance had not been met. Tassa turned. She stepped between the cowboy and the circle. She raised her arms. If a life must be taken, take mine. The words cut through dust and wind and silence. The cowboy looked up. Then her face was calm. The wind shifted. The amulet swung once across the chest of the scarred man. The judgment had not yet been made, but the offering had. The wind shifted as Tassa stepped forward. She stood alone, arms still raised, dust clinging to the ash on her skin. Around her, the circle held. Spears did not lower, eyes did not blink. The canyon breathed once and fell silent. Then the chief moved. He stepped down from the stones, slow, measured, no words spoken yet. His hair was bound in a single braid. His robe trailed behind like smoke. He looked at Tassa first, then at the cowboy. Then he shook his head. The offer was refused. Tassa lowered her arms. The lines on her face did not soften. She turned toward the cowboy. For a moment her eyes searched his, as if asking whether he understood what she had tried to give. The cowboy stepped forward. Blood still marked his cheek. His shirt hung loose at the collar. His boots left prints in the dust that faded quickly behind him. He did not kneel. He stood in front of them all and spoke without raising his voice. He said he had run from war, said he had been used by men who promised peace and rode toward profit, said he had watched good men die for paper and silence and the emptiness of pride. He said he had respected Nantan, had ridden beside him, had trusted him. He said he had watched the peace fall apart and chosen not to die in its place. He said if that made him guilty, they could finish it now. He laid the rifle at his feet. No plea, no bargain, just wait in the dust. The circle held its breath. The sun passed behind the highest ridge. Shadows stretched across the faces of the warriors. Then the old scarred man stepped forward. He held the amulet still. His voice was low, cracked, but it carried. He said the dead had been buried. He said the girl lived. He said the trial had been answered. He stepped outside the circle. One by one, the others followed. The council rose. The elders turned their backs. Spears lowered. No cheers. No final words. Only the sound of footfalls leaving through narrow canyon paths. Tessa remained still. The cowboy did not move. The dust settled once more, and the circle became empty. Again. Only the two of them remained, standing in the memory of what might have been an ending. The sky began to pale behind the ridgeline. Ash from the night before still clung to the stone. Cold now. Settled. A quiet dusting across the floor of the circle where no one remained but two. The cowboy sat with his back against the canyon wall, legs stretched, shoulders slack. The rifle rested beside him. He had not touched it since laying it down. Taysa crouched near a faded fire pit, her face bare now, the ash washed from her skin. She picked at the burned remnants of old cedar. Her fingers moved without hurry. They did not speak for a long time. The sun cracked the edge of the earth. Gold spilled across the upper stones. The shadows thinned. He reached into his coat. The shard of obsidian lay in his hand, smooth now where he had wrapped it in cloth. No edge left, just weight. He held it out. She took it without looking. No thanks, no sound. Just an understanding passed in silence. They sat in it. Not forgiveness, not peace. Just the stillness that comes after something has finished and before anything new begins. Taysa stood. Her limbs moved slow but steady. She looked to the mouth of the circle where the tribe had vanished hours before. Her people. Her road. She turned to him. Her voice was quiet. She said where she would go, toward the eastern ridge, toward the red waters that cut through the stone beyond the ghost caves, toward whatever would come next for someone who had returned from the edge. He nodded, said he would not follow. She waited, as if expecting more, but none came. No promise, no goodbye, just truth. She stepped past him, walked out of the circle without turning back. The light caught her shoulders as she rose through the narrow pass. Her form thinned with distance, then folded into stone. He watched until the last flicker of movement was gone. Then he stood. He lifted the rifle, slung it over his shoulder. No fire to stamp out, no path to clear. Only his own footsteps waiting in the opposite direction. He walked, slow, deliberate, not toward something, not away, just forward. Behind him the circle held its shape, untouched. Ahead, the light rose higher and the canyon widened. The sun touched his face. He did not smile. He did not look back. He simply kept going. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, and comment on the Old Western Tales.